you're trying to figure out ultimately what is.
It's still a mystery as to why it took them. Hello, everyone. I'm Lauren Conlin. With me, as always, is my favorite homicide prosecutor, Jarrett Ferrantino. Hey, Jarrett.
Hey, Lauren. Hey, everybody.
How's it going?
Good. You know what? I'm not great. I've wrapped up a round of labor negotiations this morning, part of one of the many jobs I have. So not always the most pleasant thing to do, but as a lawyer, that's an interesting way to practice. So it's part of what I do. It's complicated. Unions could be tough. And so one of those mornings.
What is it? Labor negotiations. Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. Yes. Who knew, Jarrett? Who knew? Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I feel like in New York right now, there's just a lot going on. I mean, there's like a million trials going on, I feel like right now, bouncing between Karen Reed, Diddy. For me, Harvey, I know nobody really seems to care about Harvey that much, but something happened last week when I was actually in Massachusetts. I was scoping out some of the Reed locations last week. And I always joke because I always like just mess up the timing. I'm like, I should be here or I should be streaming this, whatever. But Miriam Haley stormed off the stand last week in Harvey. She kind of got in this argument with Jennifer Bonjean, the defense attorney who was represented R. Kelly. She's represented some pretty high profile people, but essentially she yelled at Bonjean and she said, "Don't tell me that effing a-hole did not grape me." And then she stormed off. And it's like, that is probably not great for the jury to see. I mean, the emotions, the raw emotion she had. What do you think?
Well, I've had situations like that. You could only tell people to be calm and controlled so much. Again, when you're in that courtroom and in the witness chair, you are staring at the person who brought you there, who hurt you, who committed, and now you're dealing with a lawyer who is suggesting you're lying, more than suggesting, attacking you with maybe inconsistent things you've done or things you've said. And they know how to poke you. I'm going to tell you, I don't feel like ever losing your temper as a witness is a good thing. I think maybe people will appreciate her frustration, but at the same time, it's not great. And that kind of bleeds into the Reed situation with the voicemails over the past couple of days. Like, think about, and I always say this to people, think about the times in your life where you lost your temper. And then ask yourself this question: how did it go for you? You probably regretted what you said or regretted what you did. Well, you do not want to lose your temper in a courtroom, and you don't want to have voicemails of you losing your temper played for the jury. You just don't.
Okay, fine. So we'll get there in a second because I want to discuss that again, even though I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe the media headlines that came out after those. Well, hold on. Let me just close it with Harvey. The one thing I'll say just lastly about Harvey, when she did have this breakdown, I kind of felt like, you have that breakdown because you're frustrated and maybe because you really do, you're being truthful. He really did do this to you. On the other hand, you could argue, or one could argue, that Bonjean was really pressing her to say that she took her own clothes off and which, she didn't want to say. And then, she was being accused of being an uncooperative witness. So I feel like that, depending on how the jury saw that, it could go a number of ways. But anyway, let's get to Karen Reed. I mean, my head was spinning at Jessica Hyde this morning. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel really dumb when I listen to her talk about the Google searches and the cell phone data. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm just like, I don't think I'm that dumb. And then I listen to her and I'm like, maybe I am.
Well, that's good. That suggests to me you're buying what she's selling and respect the fact that she's pretty bright.
I mean, I thought
she just too heady and way over their heads.
Yeah, well, I think it's like a combination of that because I thought she was one of the Commonwealth's better witnesses in trial one. I really did. This time around, I do find myself getting a little bit lost, I guess, within the testimony. But the cross is going to be coming up after lunch. This is going to be a pretty quick live, you guys, just so we can, get back to Reed and get back to other things. But I want to go, Jarrett, to yesterday, Lieutenant Gallagher, and he was on the previous day as well. He made me pretty mad on the stand for a number of reasons, and I know you can probably guess why. What did you think about his testimony and about? Yeah.
Here's what I thought. I thought he came across as prepared, calm. I thought when Jackson confronted him about the solo cups, he came across as very matter of fact. He's like, yeah, that's what we did. That's how we did it. And Jackson was just nailing him on those. He was unflappable in that respect. He talked about how the state police eventually took over jurisdiction from their department. I thought he was relaxed. And I think when you're relaxed, it adds to your credibility. I thought that Jackson did a great job. I mean, those things where we're talking about the solo cups and stuff, he says, look, that was the best we could do. The state police refused to come out. It came out as reported initially as an unattended death. He told the story. And I think people will look at that and say, well, yeah, he had somewhere to store this evidence. It wasn't perfect. No crime scene I've ever been to has been perfect. So I thought Lieutenant Gallagher was strong in that respect. Where did he upset you?
Well, number one, I was doing Diddy stuff, so I had to go back and watch his testimony later that night. I was really disgusted when they asked him about, or Jackson's like, asked him about Proctor. So Michael Proctor, and that's his job to bring up Michael Proctor, because Hank's not going to do it, right? You're not going to hear Hank bring up Michael Proctor once. So Alan Jackson got to bring it up. So Michael Proctor, lead investigator on this case. He's like, I don't know. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, sorry, I really don't know if he's lead investigator. And then he mentioned something about I don't talk to the DA's office. The DA's office? What does that have to do with it? And I mean, literally everybody knows Michael Proctor was the lead. I'm saying, like, not even just people that watch the trial. It's just like, what? He got canned for his misconduct in this case while being the lead investigator. What are you saying? That was the first part of it.
He kept going back to the jurisdictional issue. Like he was saying, yeah, Proctor came in after I was basically off this thing. And the DA's office, where the DA's office comes in, Lauren, is they're the conduit. It's like the DA's office is involved. They have their own investigators. And I'm sorry to be elementary about it. And then you have the state police who take over. So Gallagher is way in the background at that point. And I think that's what he's saying. He's like, look, at that point, it wasn't my job. Like you're talking to me about the immediate moments afterwards. And I'm not saying
I don't buy that. I really like, I get what you're saying, but protocol, come on. He doesn't live under a rock. That's what I mean.
But it negates this big. So Jackson's play here, which it's been long, is this huge conspiracy between the blue shields of the world. And he's saying, look, once Canton is out, I'm out. And now I'm retired. Like he's saying, one hand may not know what the other hand is doing, which in my experience has been true and has been false at different times. So I don't know if he was being cute because of Proctor's current status as to whether or not he was the lead investigator now. I don't know what he meant.
Well, I have a feeling, I mean, today on the stand, we saw a state trooper, Trooper Keefe. Yannetti asked him, what, are you aware about Michael Proctor being the lead investigator, whatever. He said, yes. He said it multiple times. Yannetti hammering away on Proctor. I feel like possibly Hank could have given this directive, like, we're going to downplay Proctor any chance we get to every single witness, which, like, okay, that's fine. That's part of your case. So I feel like that might be coming up.
But your point is well made. Don't lie. If you feel like Gallagher wasn't being truthful, look, there's no outrunning the Proctor bomb. You got to jump on it. You say, despite what happened, despite that he was fired, it doesn't change what we did at the scene. It doesn't change what this witness said. It does not change what this cell phone evidence shows. So every time that comes up, you'd be like, yes, Trooper Proctor was terminated for unprofessionalism involving this case. That being said, my evidence remains this, and my position remains this. It's like you got to jump on the bomb. So if Gallagher came across as lying, that's not great. I was more interested in how, because where Gallagher was big for the case, as you well know, is those initial hours and that scene, whether or not it was compromised. And Jackson went at him effectively. I think Jackson does a great job, but I also think Gallagher didn't take the bait.
Yeah, and I was really kind of just shocked at his explanation of why they didn't go into the house. And I'm just like, okay, so you're telling us that no probable cause for a man police officer to be dead on a lawn where there were people in the house, there was lots of alcohol involved. I mean, you're really telling us that that's not
So
probable.
what he's saying, so two things. Afton's comment, I think all witnesses with few exceptions seem more forthcoming on direct, 100% true. And under the law, under the way that plays out, they have to be, because you're asked those direct questions, more open-ended. On cross, you instruct witnesses to be.
Right. You froze. Did Jarrett freeze for everybody? He froze for me. Guys, can you let me know if he froze? I feel like, yeah, he definitely did. But I know what he's saying. He's saying that they're directing their witnesses to be a little bit more rigid and less forthcoming on cross, obviously. I just felt like the whole not going in the house and not having probable cause. Yes, he did freeze. Thank you so much. I will continue. Was just BS. And again, I'm not law enforcement. I'm not a lawyer, but come on. If I had a party at my house, and somebody winds up deceased on my front lawn, there was alcohol, whatever, of course I'm going to, be like, yes, of course. Like I'll do whatever. I'll cooperate with the police. And of course they're going to come in my house. I have a hard time believing that, yeah, that wouldn't happen to everybody else. So to be fair, it's a great freeze. Yeah, right. Hi, MJ. Oh my gosh. No, this is a dress, by the way. But thank you so much. And this is a separate piece, but something that I will put out soon. I haven't done the edit yet, but I did go to Canton last week and to Dedham, and I went to 34 Fairview, and then I drove from Fairview. I drove to the waterfall, and then I drove from the waterfall back so I could just kind of see what the drive was like. And I have to say, it really is helpful to go there and to do that, because number one, there really wasn't any hills, I guess, when I was driving to the waterfall from 34 Fairview and then back. And then I drove out the other way towards Meadows Ave, which is where John lived. I didn't notice any hills. I captured this on video or on my iPhone camera. And then just going back to the house itself, 34 Fairview, when you actually go there, yes, Sheila, this is what I was going to say. The lawn looks so much bigger in photos. And not just that, the driveway, it looks like this super long driveway in photos. And again, I wasn't about to get out and like get my tape measure out and do all of this, because I could tell that the homeowners were actually home. There was a bunch of cars parked out there, but driveway is so short, you guys. It really made you think about, well, how did nobody see him? I mean, and how did he seemingly get lost, Officer John O'Keefe, from coming out of the car, out of the Lexus SUV and going up the driveway? That's where I was just like scratching my head. I was just like, this doesn't seem to really make any sense to me after being here. And then when you actually see how small the lawn is, and you see where the master bedroom is in terms of the front yard, you're like, okay, that's even weirder, in my opinion, that nobody came outside. Now, did they not come outside because Jen McCabe called her sister and gave her a heads up? I mean, I whatever. But it was weird to me. And again, it was really like everything in Canton, it felt like it was 5 minutes to each destination. I felt that way. Let me see. MJ, so it's impossible that she's 75% accelerated in reverse because she'd have driven through the house at that speed. Well, that's interesting because they had her car, her Lexus, right in front of the lawn. And yeah, if she did that, like it's crazy because you would think that somebody would have heard it because it is just not as large and not as spacious as it looks in pictures and in video. So I will edit that video. I will put it up at some point. I'm trying to get that done this week. There's just a lot going on. But I feel like the jurors being there without having heard some of the testimony from Brian Albert about, why he didn't come out, I feel like that's going to make sense to them, and that's going to make them think when they actually do hear from Brian Albert. But yeah, so that again, I just would encourage everybody to go to a crime scene if you have the opportunity to, because it just makes a huge difference. I feel like this is just going to be me. I was trying to get this moving so we could jump back on to the cross of Jessica Hyde. So Jarrett must have had. Let me see if he texted me. I'm just curious. I'll check my text on my Mac. No, he did not text me. What the heck? He must be having issues. Okay. Well, what did you guys think? I'm trying to go through. I had some notes that I made. Mainly they were about Gallagher yesterday. I was just, I thought that Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara was a solid witness. I thought he was truthful, or seemed to be truthful. One thing I still have trouble with as well is the fact that I think that the weather guy, the meteorologist guy, he was so cute. He kind of testified. I think he testified that I think by noon, there was like 12 inches of snow. And it is just so crazy that they seem to find more tail light as the snow progressed, or as the snow went on. Oh, he's back. So that was also interesting.
Disaster. Can you hear me?
Yes, we missed you. Okay, we can hear you.
Sorry about that. So,
no, it's fine. You were
not to interrupt. So one thing I wanted to say, Afton said something, the point we were making was people are more inclined to give answers on direct, less on cross. So I just thought the other thing about the probable cause, about getting in the house, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you find someone who's along the roadway and so what Gallagher said was there's no information known to investigators that is a nexus to the interior of that home. That's what he said. So when you find someone on the edge of a lawn, okay, just think about this for a moment. Mm-hmm. If there's no facts in your mind or known to officers, why would you go into that house? What are you looking for, and where are you searching? Those are the things you need to put forth in an affidavit. Now, should he have knocked on the door and asked to enter and gotten consent? Maybe, but the reality is, known to the investigators at that time was not sufficient to get probable cause. One thing I've done hundreds of times in my career is reviewed an application on a warrant to get into a house. You have to have that nexus. Gallagher's saying we knew nothing. There was nothing that would suggest he ever entered that home. Remember, that came 3 days later when Yannetti had that conversation with Karen.
Yeah.
And Gallagher at that point was not making that call. So what he's talking about is a very limited time frame, that immediate time period. He did not have a nexus. And I believe him. I'm not aware of any fact that would have put him in his shoes at that moment.
I think it's not about him being in on any type of conspiracy. It's just not really doing his job correctly. And I know you just explained why he did do his job correctly. I still just, I feel like the chaos, I don't know, could I have hit him? Nobody seemed to know exactly what happened, but there was alcohol involved. I just feel like any other house, they would have gone in and searched. I feel like, things would have been different if it wasn't a cop. That's just my opinion.
I just think now that doesn't mean the jury's going to buy it, but what he said was true.
Yeah.
That was factually true. He said, I was aware of nothing at that time that would have brought us in that house. Now, if there was a conspiracy where they're saying nobody come in here, I think the other thing was the camera across the street was a little bit of a problem, why they didn't even ask to view that camera. And he said, he didn't think it would have picked up what happened. Well, that's assuming what happened was contained only to that very little space. You don't know, was there a struggle? Could it have carried over into the neighboring yard? Who knows? But I'm telling you, Gallagher didn't have probable cause to get in that house.
So Brother Counsel tweeted this, and it actually made me laugh. He said, if you ever host a party with alcohol and invite someone over and he ends up dead on your front lawn without a jacket on near a drinking glass and looks like he was beaten up, don't worry, there's no probable cause to search your home. I thought that was, yeah.
But again, he makes a good point, okay? At the same time, what was known to those, and again, we're looking back. What was known to them? He's along the road. Like, there was no sign that anything took him in that house. Nobody comes out of that. Like, the whole thing didn't play right. What Sue is saying is 100% true. Go knock on the door and see what you find out. You may establish additional facts that Brother Counsel's talking about. You'll then know there's a drinking party going on. You'll then know they weren't cooperative. I'd throw that right in the warrant. He's right. But that's a different story. Did they avoid that house like a landmine? Maybe. But whether or not they had probable cause to go in is another question.
Yeah, and they didn't close it off, but we've gone through all this. And while you were fixing your internet, I was talking about how when I went to 34 Fairview last week, and I drove from there to One Meadows, and then I drove to the waterfall, and I was just trying to get an idea if there were these hills. I didn't experience any crazy hills like I thought maybe I would. Everything was around 5 minutes or so, I would say. And then I mentioned that I was shocked at how small the driveway was, how small the front lawn was. I mean, I wish I could have I said my tape measure out, but the homeowners were there, and I just really wanted to, I wanted to measure and say, because it was crazy. I was like, how is it possible that nobody saw him? That really blows my mind, Jarrett. It does. It's mind blowing. It's not.
And I'm not saying it's not. I mean, those are two different conversations. I mean, whether or not what Gallagher was saying is correct technically, and whether or not it makes a lot of sense is kind of another question, but I also think major developments yesterday were those voicemails and the 44 calls. I'm going to tell you something. If you call someone 44 times in that kind of a state,
you killed him if you did.
You kind of listen. You're in a crazed state. I'm sorry. And those messages where she's screaming into the phone. This is someone very capable of backing that car up and hitting him. I'm sorry. It's the way it is. I'm sorry. And she's calling to make sure he's all right. She didn't think she killed him. That's what this is.
You see, I just interpret those so differently, as do I think a handful of women, and guys jump in. I just feel like I'm not going to call them 40 times if I know I ran them over. I'm mad.
You don't know he's dead. That's why it's truly a manslaughter case. Let's assume for a moment she hit him. Someone who, here's the state she was in. She called 44 times. That's a crazy state. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry. Listen, I've called multiple times. I've been trying to call 44. Yeah. I mean, and those messages, like, Karen, I think he knows you're trying to reach him at this point. Like, you're 44 times is PFA territory. You're in PFA, protection from abuse territory, at like 15 calls. Okay. Like, you're harassing. This is getting crazy. 44.
Okay, so wait, you make a good point now. You're right. That is a state of mind that is not okay. I agree with you. But this, I just have why you don't hit someone, think that, you tapped him and you left him. I just feel like that's reaching, right? Why even call? Why not just drive on back there?
Because here's the situation, and MJ makes a good point. I'm not saying I'm 100% right. I'm just saying how I see this a little bit. It goes to the Kohlberger alibi too. Ironically, Karen Reed, when she's accused of doing this, is in a crazed state. Brian Kohlberger is not home in bed, and neither is Karen Reed when they're said to have committed these acts, They're in a position and in a mindset potentially to commit the crimes, She's not they want to show how nice they're getting along that night at the bar and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, she's totally unhinged on these messages. I'm sorry. Like, I've dealt with people like this before. She is in a crazy state. By the way.
Sorry.
Oh.
Jarrett, you're lucky.
My experience has been, not to say I haven't gotten a nasty voicemail or two over the years or a nasty text. I'm not saying that. Here's the point. She's calling because she doesn't know he's dead. Okay? She doesn't know he's dead. Play devil's advocate with me for a minute. She wants to fight with him. She wants to hammer this thing out. And when he's not calling back, she's slowly realizing in those moments that are on the dash cam, she did this. Could I have done it? She's acknowledging it. That's how this played out. Now, all the bumblings of the departments and the conspiracy theory may negate reasonable doubt. But at the end of the day, my thought is she hit him, she tapped him, whatever. She took off. She kept calling. Then she gets there and realizes, holy shit. That's
okay. So maybe, sure, maybe. But then I just go back to the medical examiner and I go back to Arca, who had a really good testimony to make me think that maybe he wasn't hit by a car. That's my thing, where it's like, you're right. And then going back to her media statements that we've been hearing, which, when I first heard those in the doc, I was very open and I did a live. I was just like, I don't think those are good, because she is weighing the fact, could I have done this? Did I do this? And I don't think that's a good thing. Or maybe someone on the jury or multiple people could mean that, or could interpret that as her being a human and saying, well, I was drunk, I guess. So,
but I mean, Lauren, if you had nothing to do with, if you drops, how do you get there? How do you even begin to ask that question?
I don't
Why?
know.
Like somebody you love is on the side of the road. Did I hit them? What? Where do you even get there? You get there if you're feeling guilty and you're in a fit of rage and all those other things, ARCA, the wounds, all that. When you broaden your scope, that's how you're going to chip away at reasonable doubt. I'm only saying focused on these particular issues, not great for Karen Reed. I thought Brennan's great for bringing in these statements from the media. Remember, Jackson and Yannetti tried to fight these coming in. They didn't want these in because here's why. They're not good for when the prosecution's trying to get your statements in, they're not good. Okay. And as a defense attorney, you want to control the impression Karen gives that jury. These are statements out of that courtroom where you don't have the control and you don't have the control of how they're going to interpret it. That's why they wanted them out. I'm telling you, those items alone, before you get into ARCA and everything else, aren't great for Karen. In a vacuum, she's done. In a vacuum, she's done.
So I think without, the trial is not over, but I don't see 12 people convicting her of murder. I don't.
No, I agree. 100% always agree.
But the manslaughter, that's interesting. I think that they're, depending on what happens. Yeah, I think that there is a good chance that she could be convicted of manslaughter if the jury interprets, certain, or here's the thing. I feel like it's tough with this case for many of us who know, or, we are aware of what happened during trial one. We are aware of a lot of these witnesses' testimonies and how they've changed, but the jury is not going to see that. And I didn't think that, just to the naked eye, right? For the first time that Jackson painted Jen McCabe out to be this demon, right? Her testimony definitely was inconsistent with the first time and everybody seemed to be wrong. But to me, I just don't see a jury thinking of her as this mastermind. She just did seem like kind of like a
comes across. She was definitely buttoned up in this. In this Jen McCabe was definitely more linear in her responses, composed emotionally, less angry. She was prepared. Brendan prepared her quite well. I'm sure she watched back their testimony. It's like watching film for a football game, right? You're watching film from the trial one. And you're like, Jen, that wasn't good. See where you got mad there? You can't do that again.
Right.
That's why trial two typically is better for the prosecution. But what she said, or what anybody said in trial one, can bite you. MJ said Xanax. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it seemed like beta blockers or something. She was so chill.
Well, Karen could have used them that night. I mean, my God.
Apparently, my gosh, no, really. But anyway, just to, wait, Afton said, Jarrett, do you think it's odd? She said she didn't get help with her demeanor. Oh yeah, because she was asked that. Jackson kind of asked her, like, did you, I don't remember the exact words, but it was.
Here's how that usually goes. They would say, did you meet with anyone before coming here today? They would say, yes, I met with Mr. Ferrantino. And did he tell you what to say? And you would prep your witnesses for this wonderful answer. Yes, he did. What did he say? He told me to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Right. We used to do that. So do I think it's odd she said that? Here's what I guarantee she watched, Afton. She watched all the news reports and all the analysis of her demeanor. So at a minimum, she saw that. And if Brennan didn't help her with that, she did it herself on her own and didn't need help. I mean, Jen McCabe's testimony has been, analyzed and dissected so much. If she saw a couple of those, took a couple tips and went forward.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, there was some inconsistencies. We heard some new text messages. I don't know how the jurors are going to interpret those. We heard that she maybe wasn't forthcoming at first to the feds. Again, I don't know how a jury is going to interpret that. I just know how I interpreted it, and also maybe people who did watch trial one. But just to quickly wrap things up here, I did want to just discuss Diddy for a minute, because it's the third day of jury selection, and the judge, he wants to wrap it up today. So he wants to add 10 more people to the pool of 45, which is what he will select the 12 jurors from and the 6 alternates. And it's been, usually jury selection is kind of boring. I feel like with Diddy, it's been kind of interesting because of all of the responses they're getting. They've dismissed people for, I think I tweeted it out this morning, for having Crohn's disease. Someone had to use the bathroom every hour. Someone else said they couldn't go 8 weeks without smoking weed. Another person said that, let me say this. Many people have seen the video. I would say a handful, like 75% of people have seen the Cassie video. And they said that this would not keep them from being fair and impartial. And then some people said, nope. I think the phrase was the bell's already been rung or something like that. And they're like, see you later. But Diddy, he's had some wins, I want to say, so far with this. Obviously, his 5 different outfit choices, that's a win for him. He also gets to have an expert testify that he did not have the mental capacity or the mens rea, the guilty mind, to commit these crimes because he was under the influence so much of the time. The CNN video will be admissible or will be admitted as evidence. However, Diddy had an expert come on the stand and say that they thought it was sped up and it was doctored to make it look worse. So the prosecution will actually have the raw, unedited video, which I think is worse for them personally. The defense, I'm just like, why would you want, like, that's kind of dumb, but whatever. So it's shaping up to be pretty interesting, and I think that it's going to start opening statements as expected on Monday.
So a judge allows all that stuff for a couple of reasons. One is to protect the record. You allow it in so it's not an issue on appeal. Okay. The mens rea thing, because he may have been under the influence, if that was to carry the day, think about what that says. Think of the chilling effect that says. It's like, hey, world, before you go rape somebody, okay, get drunk first. Get high first. That, in my mind, does not negate the mens. So he would have to be so overcome and overwhelmed with whatever he was doing that he couldn't appreciate the fact that he was raping someone. And the nature of these allegations, this is not I didn't hear somebody say no. These are really involved, intentional acts. So I that's a first for me, that somebody would try to claim voluntary intoxication. I intentionally got intoxicated and then committed a criminal act short of first-degree murder. You could do it on a murder charge. You can't do it.
It's wild.
I shouldn't say you can't. Good luck.
And he has a huge team of lawyers. He's added someone named Xavier Donaldson to the team very recently. Donaldson represented Rick Ross. He's also known as a super lawyer. He added another woman, a Black female attorney on Monday. And yeah, I mean, he's got a slew of lawyers. And
that's all the money he saved that he didn't have to put up for bail. See, he could
get all the
lawyers he wanted.
There you go. Yeah, he's in good spirits. I mean, he's hugging Brian Steele. He's hugging all of his attorneys. And on the first day, he asked the judge to use the bathroom, and he, about an hour into jury selection, and the judge said no, and he's like, "Sorry, Your Honor, I'm just a little nervous this morning." So, yeah, it's going, and I will be back downtown tomorrow morning, and I'm waiting for my press pass to come through so I can hopefully sit through opening statements. I mean, it's a shit show. They have an overflow room there, which is good, but it's like you have to line up so early to get in. It's wild. So anyway, Jarrett, you are in Italy next week. Is that right? So we won't.
Yes, we're traveling next week. So might be there in time for the new Pope. We'll see.
That is so fun. I'm so jealous. My gosh. Wait, how long are you going away for?
Just a week.
Okay, a week. And yes, MJ, Agnifalo's wife, Karen. Yeah, I think she was there. I don't think she was like sitting with them, but I think she was there briefly. Steele, I know. Brian Steele's amazing. He really is. God, if you're ever in trouble. Remember when he offered to basically, he was like, all right, I'll go to jail, but as for Young Thug, but as long as I can be in the same cell as him. That was so crazy. All right. Anyway, guys, let's get back to the Karen Read trial. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Jarrett, we'll miss you next week.
Lauren, we'll catch up when I get back.
Perfect.
Take care, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.